So I want to call this meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. tonight, and I'll hand it over to Deputy Mayor Stefanik.
Thank you, Mayor. The Council Corporation Township of Hornepayne would like to begin respectfully acknowledging the land on which we gather here. Today is Treaty 9, 1905, 1906 territory. The traditional lands of indigenous peoples. As we work towards reconciliation, we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. Thank you.
Thank you. Review and note any changes to the agenda. There aren't any changes presented, so if I can get a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Peter Stefanik, second by Councillor Belinda. Peter Stefanik? Oh gosh. You can tell I just woke up 5 o'clock.
How you doing, Dad?
I like how you went right into that. Okay. Moved by Councillor Peter Kistemaker and second by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that Council does hereby approve the agenda as presented. Those in favor? And that is carried.
Aye.
Thank you, Councillor. Declaration of pecuniary interest and declaration of conflict of interest. You can do that now or at any time through the meeting if such a situation arises. So we're continuing on with our draft municipal budget this evening, and we have Richard joining us. Hi, Richard. Nice to see you virtually in Hornepayne again.
Good to see you, folks.
Okay, I'm going to hand it over for the presentation, and the floor is yours, Richard.
Okay, let me just see if I can bring this up. I share that up on the screen now. Everybody see that draft capital budget summary?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. Maybe we'll come back to the summary once we go through the various departments, unless anybody had any questions up front. That's sort of just a summary breaking down which departments there are capital items budgeted for and where the funding is coming from for those items. So let's go down individually. And the first is the administration. And really what happens within the administration, we want to identify the funding that is coming in on a regular basis that typically just all gets transferred into deferred revenue so that we can then use it for various projects. So we do have our OCIF formula component that is increasing this year by $50,000 up to $456,000. Our federal gas tax around $60,000, the NORDS grant $61,000. So that's the items that are coming in, and the expenditure is simply to transfer all of that money over into deferred revenue. And you'll see a little later on where we use some of that deferred revenue, actually a lot of it. So we'll go on down. The next department is the fire department, and going through the expenses first. Because the funding, there's no grants planned for at this point in time, but we still need to do building renovations, the hall, the garage windows and doors. And I understand some of the members of council did in the last few months have a tour of the fire hall, so you know the shape of things. I understand from the fire chief we've got mold, and we also have some drywall that is actually falling and needs to be repaired. As a matter of fact, this afternoon, the fire chief did tell me that quote has been here or that budget of $70,000 was from over 2 years ago. So those costs might end up being closer to $100,000 once we get going at fixing some of those items. If that happens, of course, the actual quotes will come back to council so that they know what the costs are going to be, and we can then determine what the long-term loan will need to be in order to finance these items. So the next item is the tanker pumper, which was on the budget and approved last year. It's a smaller truck so that it will fit in the current facility, so 27.5 feet long. And again, that quote is over a year old, so it probably is going to end up being a little more than that. And again, it'll come back to council once we get some firm quotes. I know last year when we talked about that, there was the idea of some of council members meeting with some of the members of provincial government at the Good Roads or AMO conferences and try and put a little pressure on to either get some funding or to see if there's any chance of waiving the requirement that when a piece of firefighting equipment is of a certain age, that it isn't available for insurance purposes anymore. Because a lot of equipment, and I understand even this, does not have a lot of mileage or kilometers on it and is well maintained. There's nothing wrong with the equipment. So, but the insurance requirements do say when it hits a certain age that it does not qualify for proper insurance protection, and therefore insurance rates could increase if we don't get this ordered and looked after. The last two items are also the washer and dryer to look after the firefighters' equipment, and that was not done last year. And again, the exhaust removal equipment for the fire hall. Once we can get it improved a little bit, they need to be able to get those fumes out of the building so that no one meeting in the same building is going to have any issues. Any questions on the items within the fire department?
I do have one. Just in the past 2 years, like we've budgeted for the 70,000 for the repairs.
Yes.
What in the background is holding that up from being done? Like, is there something else that council needs to be doing to ensure that those renovations get completed?
I'm going to say that what I am hearing is that council wanted another report on those renovations. And I don't know whether that happened or not, but in my opinion, and I said to the fire chief this afternoon, as soon as we have the council meeting where the 2025 budget is approved, I want to get going and getting quotes, bring them back to council and get this work done, because I understand the building is in definite need of some major work. And so let's get moving on it this spring, soon as the budget is approved.
Okay, great. At council, I don't. Jen, do you have something to say?
I was
Sorry,
just gonna say, Miles had put his hand up to speak.
Okay, go ahead,
I'd
Miles.
just like to answer your question. I was never asked for a report by council.
Okay.
What I was told generally was that these items are approved by council, but I don't have permission to act on them until I'm told by treasurer, CAO, or I think the SCBA, you guys made a motion and that gave me permission. The next day I ordered it. Other times, Richard had spoken to council, I got permission, I ordered.
Okay.
I didn't go and buy a pumper because it was approved. I need permission to start working on that.
Yeah. But I'm glad you clarified that, Miles, about us not asking a report for that. I agree with you, Richard. As soon as that the budget's approved, let's get those RFPs or whatever you need to do to make sure those repairs get done.
Yes.
Because as we're seeing, the costs just escalate every year, and
That's right.
And it's the will of council that these renovations get done for 2 years now.
Yeah.
So okay.
Good to hear. Anything else on fire?
Ted, do you have any questions? I can't see you, so I just want to ask.
No, all is well, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I'm just going to say I don't see any faces when I'm sharing my screen. So you just speak up anytime anybody has their hand up or has any questions, okay?
Okay, thank you for that, Richard.
Keep rolling here. So the next department, Public Works. So we had a lot of items within the Public Works Department last year. Now, the truck itself, that Roll Pro chassis truck with a bunch of attachments is on order. And I know that that item did come back to council with a resolution to proceed with the order. So that item did not arrive before the end of the year. So it is still sitting in the budget for this year. We've got some loan repayments, and they've been there for each year on existing equipment. And then this year, Dwayne has asked that we put in a new loader. Again, the equipment, I haven't seen it, but my understanding and what I'm hearing is the equipment, all of the equipment is very old. And a lot of it was replaced at the same time. We need to try and stagger purchases if we can, but that's a request this year. The furnace for the works garage at 10 grand, that was again in last year. And I'll tell you right now that furnace has been acting up over the last few weeks, to the point there's been at least 2 service calls, and it quit again. So I've authorized Dwayne to go ahead and get that ordered. He does have a quote at just under the $10,000. So we can't have a furnace not working at the Public Works garage, because that equipment needs to be able to be put inside and keep some heat. So that pretty well is a done issue, if you want. The Third Avenue project, and let's deal with it all at once. Before I do, the last item within Public Works is the generator that was discussed a couple of meetings ago, I guess after a hydro problem in Hornepayne. And so we do have within Public Works a budget for a generator, with the idea it is probably going to be located at the Legion as the command center for any emergencies, or a warming center or whatever, if an emergency like that arises again. Now, to just talk a little bit about the Third Avenue project, what I've done, I've broken that into 3 parts. There is the road part itself, then there's the water lines and the wastewater or storm sewers as well. So those 2 portions are under the water and wastewater. I'm just going to jump right down to the bottom here, I think. Okay, so underwater for Third Avenue, I have a $1,098,000 budget, and that is being funded through federal grants. This is the ICIP grant at 805, and the deferred revenue. So those items, that money that we've been putting aside from the OCIF, 292,000. Under wastewater, I've allocated $1,032,000, and the funding for that is coming again from the same grant and from the same deferred revenue. So when you add all 3 of these up, the water, the wastewater, and the Public Works roads here, we're looking at $3.5 million, of which 73 1/3% comes from the ICIP grant, the green grant. So that grant is already approved, and we already have a sizable amount in reserve from the OCIF that can be used for roads purposes. So we might be able to cover all of this through the money that is approved in the ICIP and the money we've set aside in the from the OCIF, and also some funding from the NORDS grant that comes in each year. That is for water and wastewater projects. So I have put in the application to Infrastructure Ontario for the construction loan, so that we have the finances to pay those bills as they come in, as we would hope to send out the tender for this job again as soon as the budget is approved. And I've said in my application to Infrastructure Ontario, we would anticipate construction to start in April and be done by October this fall for Third Avenue. So that's what those dollars are. And before I go any further, does anybody have any question on the Third Avenue project or any of the other items within Public Works?
Any questions from council? Councillor Sheneman?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you. I do have one question, Richard. For the new loader, you had said staggered purchases. in the future, how many
Yes.
years between equipment do you suggest to stagger?
I guess it depends on the piece of equipment and the utilization. Um, like I've seen some municipalities that would have, let's say, a grader, for instance. And if they have 400 kilometers of rural roads and maybe half of them gravel, that grader gets a lot of use. But if, and I'm not even sure if there, I think there is a grader in Hornepayne, you don't have as many kilometers, and probably doesn't get near the, would not get as much of the use. So it would probably last a lot longer there. That is something that I hope to do. Again, as soon as we get the budget finished, I want to start with we've got a 10-year capital plan that was just approved by council. I want to go through that, and I want to talk with each manager and confirm what they've got in equipment and make sure it's in that 10-year plan so that we can sort of schedule what needs to be replaced each year and where the funds are going to come from so we can plan ahead. So it's kind of a question I can't fully answer. I can't give you a definite, again, with even plow trucks or other equipment. I would assume you're not getting the number of kilometers on that equipment that a different rural municipality, and most of the ones that I've worked for in the last 10 years are rural municipalities, but with a lot of kilometers of roads as compared to Hornepayne. So,
Okay, thank you for that. No, that answered my question because I appreciate that you'll be meeting with the management to find out about their assets and then organizing them in such a way and just tweaking that asset management plan. Thank you.
yeah, and
There you
if
are.
we, just to add to that too, if we can get through that and present an updated 10-year plan once this budget is done, then what should happen is each year, as soon as you've completed your budget for, let's say for 2026, the next step should be to then update the 10-year plan for the next 10 years. So hopefully anything that was needed for 2026 is either in the budget for 2026 or there's a reason explained as to why it can be delayed. But then you look at what is going to be out in 2036 as well. So you're always updating that 10-year plan at least 10 years ahead. Okay.
Thank you.
That's the goal. Okay. So we'll move on then to the airport. So the construction at the airport, that whole large project is just about done. There is a little bit of work to complete, which are some windows, some doors. There's some electrical work to be done. Where we hope to include some surge protection and a generator at the and a rolling ladder, all within that project to finalize everything at the airport. And again, this is something it would be nice if we can again get this work going in the spring, finalize all of those costs, and get our final report in for the ICIP grant that we have for that project. We should be able to wrap that one up within the next 4 to 6 months, I would hope.
Just a question on that, Richard. Are we able to put the renovations together? I know that like the airport money comes out of its own pocket and we have to meet those requirements. But when we're looking at the repairs to the town hall, would it be not better to have one, like we just get them all done at once if they're similar types of renovation, interior repairs?
When are you talking about the fire department, Madam Mayor?
Yeah, like the
Yes.
fixing in the fire hall and then doing windows and doors at the, because we did that a few years back with our, we couldn't get just one roof changed.
Right.
So we ended up blanketing all of them, and we ended up getting a contractor. Sometimes it's difficult, Richard, in Hornepayne to get a contractor to come in and do the work, but if it's a bigger bid, they'll come.
Exactly, and that's a very good idea. I believe we should put them together, and because when they're there, hopefully they can do both of those projects: the fire department renovations and the airport windows, doors, electrical, whatever. So absolutely, I will talk to both managers to make sure we try and put that together, and we'll look to see if there's anything else further in the budget that could be thrown in to the same tender at the same time.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay. Moving along, the next is landfill. Now, there's very little here for landfill. We did have, Dwayne had asked for SBAR, I think, and Dwayne, you may have to explain what that is. I think it was, I'll let Dwayne explain what an SBAR is.
Go ahead, Dwayne.
An SBAR is just basically an engine heater. Like you plug your car into the wall. An SBAR creates heat and makes your engine warm up without having to plug in. It runs on diesel fuel and heats up the motor.
Okay.
Just to help us cold starts the compactor of the landfill. Right now, cold starts is like I said, -30. We can't start that thing.
Okay.
So that would enable us to start it. I think we go on a time with the start 2 hours before the shift or 4 hours before the shift. And the engine will be warm when we get there.
Okay.
So in this, it shows on my sheet that the money to cover this would come from a reserve. Now that says planning and development reserve. It probably should have been a separate line that just said landfill reserve. It has really nothing to do with planning and development. But since last Friday, when I finalized this and sent it to the deputy clerk to send out, we have had a meeting with EXP Services Inc., John Smith, regarding the landfill expansion. So, some really good news there. The environmental screening report has been approved by MOE. So the next steps, and they're not in here yet, okay, but the next steps for the expansion are to get a groundwater review done, and EXP can do that for us. We'll need then a detailed design of the layout for the expansion and a new monitoring plan because of an expansion and more waste being put into that site. There would probably be the need for some new monitoring wells. And then there's the move of the transfer station. So John explained to us that that will only take a few months to put together. And he would then be doing 2 ECA amendments, one for the existing site and one for the transfer station. And that should be all done and ready for submission by June. So John is going to put together what his estimate is to do each of those items, and then he will get that to me. So I believe when he does, I should amend the capital plan and put those in. Now, at the same time, I will say we do have a landfill reserve account currently with a little over $100,000 in it. So it sounds to me like we can at least get everything done down to these approvals within the money that is sitting in the current reserve. Then John had said once he submits this, hopefully in June, with council's approval to his budget and all the plans, it would probably take 10 to 12 months for the final approval. But once that final approval comes, we're ready to move forward and start construction on the expansion. So timing is, I understand, is just perfect if we can get this thing going in June. So, as I said, what will happen, John will get back to me with what the costs of doing those, the design, the groundwork, water review, and the new monitoring plan. And once he's got that all put together, or once he gives me the numbers, I will adjust this to put in a line for landfill expansion plans for 2026, and with the revenue coming from the reserve. Any questions there?
No, I just want to clarify. So, but this year in 2025, when we adjust this capital, those monies will be coming from the reserves as well.
Yes,
And
they
then
will.
the finishing up of the landfill and the construction of the new transfer site.
Yes,
That'll be the 2026 budget. So we'll
Yes.
have, by 2026, we're gonna definitely have exhausted those reserves.
yes.
Okay,
So what we need to do, I guess, is we know what needs to be done. Maybe what we could do is get some kind of an estimate from maybe Dwayne working with John to say, okay, what all needs to be done when we start construction and what kind of money are we talking? And then are there any grants available to assist
Right.
with that? We can, at this point, we can plan on a year before we're going to be actually putting a shovel in the ground to start doing the expansion. But we've got a year now, knowing everything else is approved, and there's just this final approval of the plans to monitor and everything with the expansion. Then we've got some time to look for some funding and to get an estimate on what it's going to cost to put that construction together. Okay.
well, and I think too, it's timely then, if we have that in June, just for council's consideration, this might be another area where we do a delegation at AMO.
Yeah.
And we ensure that they know that we need these funds in the budget or something's opened up for municipalities. Go ahead, Jen.
In our meeting with John, he did advise that he's pretty sure there is some funding available for landfill expansion projects. So I am in the process of researching that as well, so that we can. work on
Okay.
that.
Oh, perfect. Thank you for that, Jen. Okay, any other
Okay.
questions, council, on that? Thank you for the good news. I'm glad you had that meeting, Richard. We were quite concerned about that and where it was at, so I'm glad that's back on.
It was good timing. I had reached out to John just saying with the expansion program, are we looking at any budget for 2026? And he said, I'm glad you asked. I think we better have a little conference and I'll bring you up to date. So that was good timing.
Okay, great. So any other questions from council at this point? Councillor Sheneman, do you have any questions?
No, just thank you, Richard and Jen, for going above and beyond. Thank you.
Okay. Next is the cemetery. And I think the only thing we have there is Dwayne has asked for a headstone lifter. And it does sound like a piece of equipment that would be very, I shouldn't say economical, but very a good piece of equipment to have to help monitor things and to maintain the cemetery and make sure that the stones are looked after. Again, there are some capital reserves that could cover that cost. So his request is covered by a transfer from capital reserves. And
Okay, question on that. I think it's a great idea. Is that something that we can do a shared services with? Because it's not a piece of equipment we'd be able to use all the time. If other communities, like they knew we had it, we could rent that out.
Sounds like a good idea to me. Dwayne, I don't know whether you would know. Do other municipalities fairly close have that equipment or have a need for that equipment, or any cemeteries that might be interested? You might be able to recover some of the cost by simply renting it out or letting them know that it's here and available, because it's not something that's going to be used every day.
Yes, we could definitely rent it. It's not a very big unit. It's
Yeah.
basically right now, the way we line up the stones the best we can with lining bars, basically. It's not really safe.
No.
This was 4 jacks that go in the corner, almost like a trailer jacks with anchors that go under the headstone and they strap together, and you have 4 jacks. Basically 2 guys can use it, no problem, with the stone up. It comes up nice and level. You control the speed of what you lift it up. Straight and wrong.
Okay. And is this something too that we can offer for the services when they're putting in the headstones? Or do we do all of that work for the funeral homes?
They come with a crane.
They do it all?
Yeah,
Okay,
right,
okay.
It's just something for us to level them off, make them like there's
Yeah.
quite a few still reading.
Once it settles, eh?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And we don't want them getting damaged.
I don't think it's a really big investment, honestly, and I think it'd be a lot safer than the way we're doing it right now.
Okay. Jen, go ahead.
I just want to note, there are like some headstones that become a hazard to like the areas around them, that we don't necessarily have the equipment or the safe equipment to fixed, so this would help with a lot of the hazards as well.
Yeah.
And
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
If you guys want to look it up, it's called Tombstone Jack. That's what it states.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that,
All clear.
Dwayne and Jen and Richard, go ahead.
Okay. Recreation Department, we have nothing in there this year. Of course, last year, the big item was the new ball field, which is all complete. And so everything's done there. And then in parks, there is some work to finish on the pavilion washrooms, but very little. And that we're suggesting that whatever those costs are, the funds come out of the community well-being reserve. I think that's very appropriate funding for that item.
Okay, Richard, I'm just gonna
yeah.
interrupt you there for a second, just to go back to the ball field, because I
Yeah.
think like all of the field creation's done, but we still have to put back in our bleachers and some other items. Will those be captured under the capital reserves, or will that be under maintenance in our operating budget?
That's a good question, and I don't have the answer. Maybe Dwayne would have an idea what is required as far as bleachers, whether there are existing that can be moved in. Are we buying or building bleachers, and some kind of an estimate? And is there anything else required for the new ball field? You know, if we've got a nice new ball field, we might as well make sure it's usable. And
Yeah, and I don't want people's hands tied because we didn't budget for it or we didn't prepare for it. So.
Bleachers, we have the existing bleachers from the old ball field. We just need new board.
New boards, okay. So we'll take that out of operating then?
More likely. Yes,
Okay.
just boards. And then the fencing will be the big one.
oh, fencing around, yeah.
That'd be the big one.
Okay.
Yeah, would fencing in the ball field fencing itself, Dwayne, is that what you're thinking? Like for the
Yes.
outfield?
That's correct,
And-
yes.
Yeah. So that is probably something, should we be adding into the recreation department then, fencing and any material that might be needed to finish bleachers?
Go ahead, Peter.
The fencing, through you, Madam Mayor, Dwayne, can that be done by volunteers? Obviously, we buy it. Can that be done by volunteers? With like you guys directing?
As long as they're properly trained and all the courses they have to take.
Or they have to take courses?
It's not like the old days.
Oh,
Boy, yeah.
Regulations now have a volunteer.
So, Councillor Stefanik, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we spent a massive amount for the ballpark. I don't see no rush putting the fence up. Town Center Field had no fencing for 10 years. We did well. The massive amount is spent, I'm not prepared, one person on council spend another 50, 60,000, not at this moment.
Mhm.
I want to make sure everybody knows where I stand.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Belinda, go ahead.
Well, the other thing that wasn't brought up was the dugouts.
Oh, okay.
I know that I've been asked like what we needed from the ball. The people who are trying to raise money for the baseball field in the first place, I know they are asking like what had to be done yet. And they do know about the fencing, the dugouts, and the bleachers. I did pass on that information. I'm hoping that maybe they'll want to help with all that, or I don't know. Should we still account for something in there just in case, or whatever?
Right. Dwayne, did you want to speak to that, or do you
Sorry, I
need to?
just answered that. Yeah.
Okay. Just on the ball field, I think it would be prudent to understand what we're looking at financially for the future, like where are we at, like where are we gonna get this money? It would empower the people that are volunteering and fundraising that, hey, this is what we need to get this, and maybe it could be broken down into segments. Like I know in the past, people came together for that new scoreboard at the arena. And you know, there was a set amount, this is what we need, this is what it would take to get it done. So I have no problem with that. I'm just concerned that, and I want to just ensure that the back fencing, is that still usable, what we had there? Can we put that back up, or because that, like anything to protect our building, I'm concerned about that.
It's damaged for sure. Will not look great.
Do we not have a backstop already though?
The backstop is there. Just
Right.
the side fencing towards the building is not there. Just that we only have a backstop.
Okay, the backstop's there,
Yes.
okay,
Brand new.
oh, all brand new,
That was part of the baseball.
oh, okay, so
That
that,
part's there.
okay, perfect, okay,
There's just nothing on the sides or at the back end of the field. There's nothing there.
okay.
So backstop is there.
Okay, I would be comfortable for now, council, that Dwayne look at it, what the materials he currently has, and what would be, if anything, salvageable, and then how we get it to move forward. Because, and you are gonna need dugouts.
Be handy to have that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, it's a hot sun, we need people to have some shade, so. Okay,
So am I hearing, do we leave the budget the way it is? And I like the idea of trying to involve the public and maybe create a plan. And if 2025, the plan is to get the bleachers back in place, and maybe the next year it's the dugouts, and then, eventually the outfield fencing, all of the items that are needed to finalize the ball field.
yeah,
I do want to point out too, the nice thing is when we got the quote to get this job done, as you can see, it was 392,000 was the budget for last year, and they come in like $25,000, a little over 25,000 under budget. So that was nice, and we still, we ended up borrowing less money than we had planned by $22,000. We did not have an active program looking for donations that I had kind of suggested a year ago. But I just want to make sure, do we want to leave it with zero budget, or do we want to put a little bit in there? We'd have to find a reserve for it, I think, or another way of coming up with the money. Maybe it's best to simply find out what the plan is, set a plan for the next few years to finish those items, and then see if anybody's got any idea on how we can come up with that money. And then it can
yeah,
come back to council and say,
I'm definitely in agreement with that, and I'm in agreement with Councillor Stefanik about the fencing, that the back fencing doesn't need to be put up right away. And the other thing is this is a new area that we've created for our community, and we have to see how they use it. Like the fencing that we had down at the old ball field may not be appropriate now. Like we might be looking at something different that runs along that. Maybe we want more entrances to the ball field if we're going to be using it for other venues. So I'm okay, like let's use the field and then see what people like, where do we actually require it, and what does that fencing look like? Because it may not be what we had down here, right? With it going so far in the end, it might be that we have taller fencing along that, but more entrances to the ball field and to use it. So I'm game to leave it as is, and the planks for the bleachers can come out of operating budget, and then make the plan of over a next couple of years and show the community what we need and what we want and what they want too.
yeah,
Peter,
I
go
was
ahead.
The dugouts, that can't be done by volunteers either. You gotta take a course for that as well.
I think volunteer work, property or working with us has to be taken. We have to put-
Can we have a group made up? Just trying to think of ways around it,
Yeah.
because putting a fence is what the easiest thing you could do. And it is chain link fence is very financially, and I'm pretty sure we can come up with that, like through donations or whatever. But could we just come up with a volunteer or like a group, and we pay them $100 for the whole jobs just to make it, and somehow go on our insurance, so we're covered with the liability. It just, there's got to be a way to get around these rules, because every time we try to get ahead, there's another rule that says we can't.
Yeah,
How do other communities do it? We got to be able to do it.
I like that idea, Peter. And the other thing I'm thinking is it not possible that if we had a group of volunteers, like we said, okay, the dugouts need to be 12 by 16 or whatever, what have you, I don't know how big they are, and they were built off-site by a group of volunteers and then they were donated. Can we not go pick them up and put them on site, and then now they're, the liability, as long as they're inspected, we have a building inspector,
You pour the pads and just put.
pour
them
the
in.
pads and put them right on top?
Yeah.
Okay, so anything like that, I think we should look into, because that, like, and then it's off-site, it's, you know, and then it's a finished product that's being donated, and we just move it in, and the township comes good to move it. Does that work, Peter?
I think it's very, very feasible. And then something the size of a dugout, I think I'm not sure, 16 by 6, or I'm not sure. Give
Yeah,
or take. That we could be moved individually owned machine, and when we construct it, we would build it accordingly so that the forklift can pick it up without falling apart. And just
Yes.
place it in, and then the fence and that, but I mean, do that through a separate group or something, but I mean, at arm's length so we can, it'll be legal, but you know, if the will, where there's a will, there's a way. Look at, Drago was 100% right. We went years without the fencing, but that fence was entirely funded and built by volunteers. So now the rules have changed, but we gotta do the best we can.
yeah, for sure, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, I heard this documentation discussion. I'd like to have documentation on that, exactly what the group has to be done. I
Mhm.
want to see the actual rules and regulations. I mean, I heard this now for the last 3 or 4 years on this table from various staff. I want to see exactly what's needed with the municipality.
To have
Yeah,
volunteers?
I want to see exactly what the needs and wants are. So I'm hearing one side, I want to know. I want to have it in writing. Can we do this? We can't do this.
So, so you're asking for a report
Yeah,
on what it is required to have a volunteers do
Yeah,
work in the
but not
municipality?
our report. I mean, if there must be a report through a ministry, if whatever ministry is in charge or demands that,
No, I think that's valid.
I
and that
mean,
we
then
can-
we know, because we discussed now for 4 or 5 years, we tried different projects, we're back to square one saying, well, we can't do this. Well, I want to see documentation. And I'll go from there. And the supplementary to Dwayne, he's 100% correct. The right side of the field, so I'll do a number on the cladding. It will destroy that cladding, and there's also propane piping. So it's far enough for it to not to be, oh, it is, okay,
It's
thank
still
you.
gonna be down first base line, though,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yeah,
But you're 100% correct. It's gonna do a massive number on that. So I guess so instead of having a massive fence, I suggest we could go with the higher fencing than the actual backstop, first 20 feet, and that would basically, and with the hangover, my assumption would eliminate most of the shots.
Should help.
But that's gonna be a biggie.
yeah. Do we have some fencing to utilize to, put around our tanks? Do we get that
Big pieces of what we have.
pieces of what we have, just until, so that's protected for this season?
The propane guy said everything the way it is should be okay at the impact where it is. Like shouldn't break any way that they put in there.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Just so I get it straight, ball diamond, the backstop is up against the arena, or is it the other way?
The arena's right here.
Yeah.
The back one. I was there a few times. And the back is approximately 25 feet away from the wall itself.
So you're hitting towards the tree line?
Yes.
Okay.
People that have fall balls,
Up
you go
first,
100,
yeah.
250 feet.
First base line was
Yeah.
right along the arena wall.
Okay.
Like that's where,
Yeah.
am I correct the way I'm saying it? Like it's,
Kind of tilted over a bit.
Like at a 45 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cladding.
okay, any other questions on that?
Okay.
Do we need a motion for, having a report for volunteer? You don't need a motion for that? We have quite a bit happening, so if we could get that by March, is that feasible?
April, it doesn't matter.
And so Councillor Stefanik mentioned it might not have to be like a staff report if there is like guidelines provided by the
Yeah.
ministry, so would that be acceptable to the council as well?
Yeah, as long as we know what it takes to have a volunteer working, say, on fencing and working with our public works staff to get it done. Yeah, instead of us hiring, like, they're gonna do the work anyway, and then we hire contractors. Well, if people wanna volunteer and put the hours in, what do we need to get it done?
Yeah,
And
type of training.
Yeah.
It's a one-time training only. I mean, those are key questions.
Mhm. 'Cause we wanna develop that property and people wanna help, so.
And I think we have a new rep for MMAH, and she's been really helpful. So she might be a good place to start too, to just ask if
Yeah.
she would probably know or know where to find that information, so I can reach out
Okay.
to her.
Okay, thanks, Jen.
No problem.
Okay, any further questions on that, or okay, thank you, Richard, for your patience. You can move on.
That's fine. And I just wanted to say, I think it's important to let the public know, because we're not budgeting anything here does not mean that we're done with the ball diamond, that there are other projects. We want them to get involved and determine what needs to be done and how we're going to do it. Okay.
Thank you for saying that, Richard.
All right. So we talked about parks, and the only thing there was the pavilion washroom to be finalized. So I'm going to move on to the arena. Now, what I've done for the capital budget is I have said we just got the building report on that facility. And I know at the last meeting, it was the comment was made that should we be looking at doing an expansion if there are some work that needs to be done on the roof and on the existing building. So I have reached out to J.L. Richards that did the engineering study for the addition, the expansion at the arena, and I have sent them the building condition report, asking them if we could combine the two, so that are we still able to go ahead and tender in 2026 to get the roof repaired and get working on the addition. And again, I think it comes down to, excuse me, if you have a contractor there doing an addition, if you can get the roof redone at the same time by the same contractor, again, there's not the mobility, the moving in and out, and the materials and everything. There could be a saving by trying to do it all at once. So what I have done is I've taken what the estimates are to do the addition, and I've added $900,000 to that based on the estimates from that building condition assessment. I think the roof alone was in that neighborhood. There were other things that are maybe a little less, not quite as important as the roof itself. And so I've had that discussion, and at this point, I thought, let's at least put it in the budget with the hope that we are able to continue and tender that job this year. And if so, then we would have the federal grant. It just means that our long-term loan to finance the township's portion of that project would be even higher because of the roof repair that would have to be done as well. That's why the big number's there. And at this point in time, we're still waiting on a response from J.L. Richards once they review the condition assessment as to whether they think the two projects could be done together. And if so, do we proceed this year? Or do we need to go ahead and simply tender for the repairs to the building so that we can stabilize it and delay the addition for, I'm going to say, till 2026. I'm hoping that we can do it all and move forward. And I have not completed the application to Infrastructure Ontario for the construction loan and the financing for that until I get an answer back from them. I'm going to finalize that paperwork. So I'm hoping that we have an answer shortly, and then we can make the final decision. But for now, I think it was important to have it in the budget as an item to hopefully plan for. And then one small item, an ice making water rig. And again, I think that's just something to help with the arena to make the job of making ice a lot easier for the staff that are there. And again, if there's any questions about that, Dwayne might be able to explain that a lot better than I could. Oh, big item, arena, but it involves a lot of things. It involves the arena, the curling club, the fitness center, the library addition, all of that in that expansion.
Okay, great. I see Councillor Sheneman has his hand up. Sorry, Councillor, I didn't notice when your hand went up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The concern I have would be the longer we put off, the more that cost is going to go out of control. And if we look at taking that arena renovation further, I think any savings we may have had are going to get eaten up by the new costs that go up. They're just skyrocketing unbelievably, and I think we need to try to figure out a way to be able to do it as soon as possible. Combine them, but be able to do it and get started in 2025. The longer we hold off, the longer, the higher that cost is going to be, and it'll be something we cannot gain back. My concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I just have one, have we looked to about submitting an application for the community improvements to NOHFC? Because now this is a total different report that's associated with a different part of the building. I know in the past, staff have told me that no, we couldn't do it for the expansion portion, but this is a different report that's repairs to the existing building and roof.
We do have a grant approved for the expansion.
Exactly, and in the past I've asked about the NOHFC, but we can't bundle those grants together. But the repairs that were cited in that report last week are not part of the renovation.
No, they're not.
So I would see it as a separate issue, and could we not try and apply to those funds?
I don't see why we couldn't. We could always try. I guess the way the budget is laid out now, the funding for those, I'm going to call them repairs to the existing facility, would be financed through probably a long-term debenture with Infrastructure Ontario. But if any other grants or funding that we could get is just going to reduce the amount that we would have to make in that long-term or the funds that we would have to acquire by long-term loan.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm just on that note too. Is there, just back to the ball field for funding with Trillium, because we got the funding to do the ball field part of it through Trillium. Is there, if we were to put a walking path around the exterior of the ball field that included fencing for protection of people that are using that walking path, would that not be a way that we get our fencing paid for and we get it through a grant? Because it would be a different separate item from our ball field.
Yeah. I hesitate there in that that's an additional project. And even if you are successful in getting a grant, there's still going to be a portion of that project that has to be funded by the taxpayer. And
yes,
what I'm hearing is the fencing can wait. And,
yes.
and so I would say, let's not consider a walking path. Although, if there was a lot of interest from the public in a walking path could simply be a dirt path to start. Now, maybe not. I'm not sure what the soil conditions are, whether a dirt path would make a good walking path or whether it needs to be something with some asphalt or whatever. But I think, personally, I think there's enough large projects going on that I wouldn't suggest another in order to get fencing.
Yes, I agree with you, Richard. I'm looking at the longer term, like if we're going to put fencing off, then that might be a project that we, combine together to help pay for that fencing. And then it gives us another service
and maybe down the road, once we've got Third Avenue done and maybe the arena expansion completed, and the funding for that done and or long-term loan, wherever we end up with, yes, then absolutely that would be another good project after the fact.
Okay, thank you for that.
Anything more there then on the arena? Is everybody content to just leave the budget as it is for that project? And I think what I'm hearing from the councillor is that even if we have to do two separate tenders, let's get on with getting this work done in 2025. And so I guess on that basis, we'll wait to see what we hear back from JL Richards as to whether it could be combined, and if not, then how do we go about getting both done this year and try and get the whole project completed. Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll move on then to planning. And I don't believe Stacy made it back. I hear she got snowed in maybe in Sault Ste. Marie or somewhere. So she did mention a couple of things. We've got the marketing and branding program going on this year. She had asked for a budget of $35,000, and I think this was in her long-term plans from previous years and previous reports. And of that, we were putting that would include some new apparel with the new brand. We had a long chat about that. And so once that does arrive, the suggestion is the township offer it for sale as well, and maybe try and get the businesses and the general public behind this whole new brand for the municipality. And so we're budgeting for some sales of some of that apparel, and the balance of the branding, which is and it's too bad she's not there, but I think she was looking at a bunch of things like the entrance. I'm going to say the entrance sign, if that's what you call it, where the bears are and whatever, and the welcome to Hornepayne with the new brand. So that's the budget is to try and get that brand out through the municipality. So from the well-being reserve, I think was the plan all along for that. The second item that she was talking about doing this year is the community improvement plan, and there is money in a CIP reserve specifically for that. That's about all I know about this. Does anybody have any questions on, I guess, those two major items under planning?
The only question I have, Richard, is with the sale of the products, are we looking at, and it probably we'll have to wait for Stacy's answer, but are we looking at being a wholesaler provider, or are we going to be selling products of the township? I'm just concerned about, I'm just not sure what would be the best option.
Okay.
And and then it's distributed so businesses can make some money off of it too. I'm just not sure. We don't have the capacity, I think, to open up a retail store.
No, and I don't think that's the intention at all. I believe the intention is to order, I'm going to say a few things, like some t-shirts, some ball caps, maybe some sweatshirts, maybe even light jackets. I don't know. And I'm going to make the comment, when you change a brand, I've seen lots of times where that new brand, let's say the t-shirts, the ball caps, an item one, are maybe given to all staff with the introduction of the brand. And that sort of gets it out there. And then they're offered, let's say it's a t-shirt, okay? Then they're offered, if anybody from the public or from the businesses around town would like to buy one of those at our cost, we're not trying to make money off it. All we're trying to do is to push that new brand out there. And so maybe the local hardware store want to buy a few t-shirts and get that brand through their employees, so that everybody is, the motel, maybe they do something, whether, like I said, maybe it's ball caps, maybe it's t-shirts, whatever. So the idea is to have them available for sale, whether it's for sale to the staff or to the public.
Okay, thank you for that, Richard. Any other questions at this time, council? I'm not seeing any. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, we're down to then the water projects and the wastewater. So the main thing that I want to look at there is under expenses, we do have principal payments on long-term debt under both water and wastewater. And then the only other item is the Third Avenue project for this year. and where that money is going to come from. Now, the one thing I didn't know, and you'll see I made a note there, the wastewater dechlorinization may have cost to be added into the 2025 budget. I have not been advised or don't know. And I, to be honest with you, I didn't know who to reach out to. I think it's EXP as well. But at this point in time, there is nothing further. The last report that I think I saw from them on that project was early 2024, and there were some budgets for a couple of small projects to be done last year, and I think that's been completed, but I don't know about 2025. So I will reach out before we finalize this, but as I said, the only major items are the large project on 3rd Avenue for 2025. Any questions?
Okay. I just have one question about the HAAs and that report. So we don't have any contingency funding budgeted for that when all of that comes back?
We don't. And to be honest with you, I don't know a lot about what that's about. We do have some money in the deferred revenue. I think the Nords was for water projects. There's also going to be some money left in the OCIF that could be used for that type of a project. And then I believe there is still a straight water and sewer reserve itself that could be used to help with items like that. And it was budgeted to be $278,000 at the end of 2024. And I also have not finalized a lot of the adjustments to be able to say to council yet, what monies did we use, what came in to our reserves, because we do have those deferred revenues that come in each year that helps build the combination of reserves and deferred revenue. And then there is some money that comes in for the community well-being fund every year as well. But separate from that, there is, I don't think there's any other revenues, the gas tax and the other deferred revenues that come in.
Well, I'm just seeing from 2024, the budget that we budgeted for 25,000 transfer from water sewer reserve that we didn't utilize. We
Right.
didn't transfer, and then it was for the engineering plans of the THMHAA reduction.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we should put that back in, and then the further thought I have too is maybe we should be pushing to get this done in case we need to include some of whatever comes out of this report for the 3rd Avenue project. I would hate to see that we have to do some sort of upgrade after that project's complete from this report.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good idea. And I should have thought of that. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I would agree with you. Let's bring that $25,000 forward anyway. And in the meantime, before we bring the final budget to council, I'll try and reach out to EXP again and just see if we should be considering anything further in 2025 for that item.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Jen, go ahead.
So I believe this one is actually through KGS, if I'm not mistaken. And this is the one that we've been in discussions with JP and Aqua about. It was the one where they were discussing the additional sampling required.
Right. Yes, you're right.
And so there was a discussion of if they did weekly additional sampling, it would be 24,000 additional this year. And the discussion was to decide upon, is it bi-weekly or semi-weekly when it's every 2 weeks?
Bi-weekly.
Thank you. So bi-weekly. So that will be, they're estimating it to be approximately $12,000, just under $12,200. Because that those samples and those tests are required to move forward with figuring out the HAA THM.
Okay, have we included that in our operating budget? Or have we included that anywhere?
So this was actually only discussed this week, so I don't
Okay.
think that it's included in here. They provided us with the information on Monday.
Okay,
Right.
so with that, we're creating more wells for monitoring? Is that what we're doing?
No,
No.
we're,
And I just,
sorry, I
Mike,
believe all we're
on that?
doing,
Go ahead, Richard. Sorry.
okay, thank you. I believe all we're doing is we have to take extra wastewater samples and have them analyzed for different items. And
Okay,
to have what they're billing us for is not any extra time. They're saying these are the costs of having the samples tested bi-weekly, and it come up to 100 and some odd dollars, or I guess more than that, every 2 weeks.
okay, just one second. Counselor Sheneman, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The concern, and we'll have to get to another meeting, is that we really haven't seen any resolve. The increased testing isn't going to help change what's going on, and we've had no resolve of why that has been happening. And I think we need to sit at a meeting and decide that and see before we authorize, if we don't have to authorize that weekly testing, because the weekly testing won't change anything unless we've had something changed in the process.
Okay, but is it a legislative requirement, the testing, like to get for what they need?
If I understand correctly, we are exceeding the acceptable amount of
Yes,
HAAs.
yeah.
So we need to determine why this is happening. So that's what the additional testing is for. Because it's, from my understanding, a pretty substantial process to figure out exactly why that's happening. And then once that's figured out, we can plan. But this is what the additional testing is for, is to figure out.
Okay, does that help, Counselor Sheneman? So the additional testing actually helps us discover what the problem is.
I would hazard to say that isn't not what Jen is saying, isn't what she's been told, but more testing is not going to change what's happening in the system. I've had my small water operator license, and more testing will not change what's going on in the system. We need to know what we've now had, like 18 months of exceeding the limits, the allowable limits, and we need to find out why that is. The extra testing is only going to tell us that it's still happening. It will not change why it's happening. Thank you.
Okay, can we put this on for a discussion item for our February 12th meeting? And then by that time, we should have more information.
I think that's a good idea. And then that way we can have that discussion, and then we can try and also determine how do we determine what the problem is, and how do we then determine what needs to be done in order to fix the problem, and what do we need to budget in order to do both of those items.
Yes, and I agree with Counselor Sheneman, like we need to get the problem resolved. And the sooner the better, so.
Yeah.
Counselor Stefanik, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Council Shannon, but also I don't want to end up being negligent by not doing the tests. I think that's an avenue that we are following up, and hopefully we'll find what the difficulty is. If we discontinue, I could see us being negligent because we said, oh, we'll wait till we fix the problem. I disagree. I think you should continue testing until we meet again and discuss it further.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Again, Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Counselor Sheneman.
Thank you. There is always ongoing testing of the HAA, and if we're legislated to do it or mandated, then we have to. But if the extra testing is by choice, then we need to opt out and do what is required, not over and above, because it will not change the test results. But whatever we're legislated to do, absolutely, and I'm sure the guys are doing that now, to add more testing, unless it's mandated, I don't see the value in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, so we'll have a fulsome discussion because we'll let staff, it sounds like this information just came out recently to staff, so we'll give them time to get everything together. And then we can have that discussion on February 12th. And Richard, you'll keep it in the background of your mind as you're finalizing of our budget, that there should be some money set aside for the implementation of whatever we need to do to resolve that issue.
Absolutely. Yep. That's good. So I think that brings us to the conclusion of the operating budget. So I'm just going to jump back up then to the summary and ask again, based on that, we've had very little in changes, but a couple of small items on both the spending and the funding side. Anything from that? I guess what this does tell us that we're looking to do two major projects, one being Third Avenue, one being the arena and the repairs to the existing facility, the expansion and repairs, which would result in grants of almost 7 million. The long-term loans, and part of that is as a result, we could end up with some loans for the Third Avenue. We definitely could end up with some loans for the arena expansion and repairs. But then we also have the equipment under the fire department and the public works that will need to be financed. We are drawing down the deferred revenue by $1 million, but I think that's what Council has been planning all along for things like the Third Avenue by putting that OCF formula funds into the deferred revenue and building it up so that we could do the project like Third Avenue. The rest are very minor items. So to finalize where we're at now, is everybody content with those numbers at this point in time?
Any questions from council? Okay, the only question I have is if we don't end up moving as quickly for the arena project,
Yeah.
and this capital funding will be pushed over into 2026 then?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it would simply reduce the arena spending and it would reduce the grants and the loans.
Okay, and in the background, we're gonna try and work to the best of our ability to ensure our interest is kept at a minimum while we're doing these repairs and work?
When you say interest, you mean the funding of the projects?
Yeah, of drawing
Yeah.
out on the loans. Yeah,
Right.
it's just,
Yeah, the two main projects, the intention is to have Infrastructure Ontario construction loans, which are at, I don't know the exact rate, but they generally have very good interest rates on any construction things. And what that does is it allows us to pay the contractors as the bills come in for the work, but then also get our claims in for the grants. And while we're waiting for that grant money to come back in, we fund it through Infrastructure Ontario construction loans. We will look into sometimes some of those grants will give you advances once they know you've got a shovel in the ground and projects are going. So that may help as well as far as cash flow instead of having to borrow for cash flow. Okay.
yes, thank you for that, Richard.
Okay.
Councillor Stefanik, go ahead.
Yeah, no real question to you, Mayor, to Dwayne. Excuse me, the new loader, it's a must this year?
So what?
Okay, I have a follow-up question to the loader question. When does it become a must?
As soon as something major goes, and it costs more to fix it than what the machine's worth.
Yeah,
So where the machine's at 30 years old. It's a need, but it's also a want.
Thank you.
okay, go ahead, Richard, sorry.
Good. Are we good there? Okay.
Yes.
If we're good with capital at this point, then I want to jump down to the changes that came to the operating budget since we met 2 weeks ago. So I thought the easiest thing was to simply highlight the changes themselves and then give you an updated summary. Okay. Instead of giving everybody a full package of every department. So in summary format, what I have done, I've added an additional revenue being there will be a supplementary tax bill for the new motel in 2026. I've already been in touch with MPAC, and they have told me what the assessment is on that property, and so that will happen in 2025. Sorry.
On a question on that, Richard, just in your conversations with MPAC, did they give any indication of when they're gonna do the assessments for residential and the rest of the community?
As far as an update to the assessments, no, they didn't.
It's
They
still
did not.
sitting at 2016 numbers.
They are.
No?
That really, I think that decision is going to come from the province, not from MPAC.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they had heard anything yet.
No, nothing
Thank
that
you,
I.
Richard. Sorry for interrupting you. Go
No
ahead.
problem. Not at all. And when we were going through the budgets, there is an adjustment to the council budget, and that is because we decided to put municipal government wayfinders costs into contract services, which is under admin. So some of that was being charged to council. So I've taken that out of council and I'm putting it down into administration, contract services. So wages are being dropped significantly. And we end up with a budget line called contract services, which is for both my own billing and for municipal government wayfinders. And a lot of the municipal government wayfinders costs are training, travel. So that's going to reduce. So that sort of nets out those items, just moving them from one line to another. But the other big change with that supplementary tax bill increase, I'm suggesting, so this is suggesting, and that's why I want some discussion, that we have a new expenditure called transfer to reserves of $50,000. So what I'm trying to do is say, let's take that new assessment that's going to happen because of the motel, and instead of reducing our bottom line fully, that we start putting some of that money back into reserves for future capital and other items that we may then not have to fund long-term financing in the future. Okay. You'll see the net.
And you're getting consensus around the table on that, Richard.
That's good. I'm glad.
No, I can't see Councillor Sheneman.
In agreement, though. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, good. I strongly recommend that. I would like to have done a lot more when you've got a new item like this, but what I wanted to do, and I'll come back up to here, but what I wanted to do is get this as low as I can. We're still looking at an overall tax rate increase of 3.36. I was trying to get to 3, but I also wanted this to be something substantial. Okay, we're basically using 70,000 of that new tax to keep us down at the 3. Okay, so I'll just carry on. When we did discuss the fire department, it was agreed 2 weeks ago that we would increase the revenue by $5,000 because they're going to do more billings, I believe, for call-outs if it does not involve a resident of the township. So this is more like highway billing and insurance company billings. We also agreed to jump the honorariums for the firefighters substantially, $12,000, but a good percentage raise for them. Instead of, I think, from my memory, which is getting bad, I think we were being calculated around the $7 an hour mark. So this makes it a little bit more of a reasonable rate for our volunteer firefighters. There was I think I had reduced the equipment budget by 5, and the chief had asked that it be put back up to the old rate. So there was a 5,000 increase there. We also talked about travel and training. It's mainly the training, and we decided to increase that by 5. And then there was one small item. The fire chief also mentioned that the fire agreement expense had been bumped in recent years, and we needed to increase that by the 700. This is a new item, and I don't believe we talked about it, but after the budget, Dwayne had said there's a lot more call for beaver control in the area. And he thought instead of trying to just bury it somewhere, we should be letting the public know that there is something there. So we had a budget line for bylaw. I just changed it to bylaw and animal control. And I'm adding in $1,000 for beaver control. Okay. Building permits. I believe we discussed that, and I suggested we bump that by 5,000. And I still, from the efforts of trying to get a realtor and get surplus property sold, hopefully we can get some building permits going with those property sales and see an increase in building in the municipality. Okay, I'm just going to carry on and then I'll ask for questions. It was pointed out to me that there is no more AV gas sales, so I removed that from that budget line. And the fitness facility, we had reduced the furniture and equipment from 5,000 to 3, and it was pointed out they needed some replacement exercise equipment, so that we should probably leave it back at the $5,000 budget. So that jumped up again by 2. And the library had asked us just before the last meeting to reduce their travel and training by 3 and their ebooks by 5. So when you add up all of those changes, that means we had previously a levy increase of 131,000. But because of this big increase here, now down to the $74,000 increase in levy. And as you'll see in this summary, when I put all of those changes into each budget or each department in this summary, the bottom line is now we need an extra $74,000 over and above the previous year's tax billing, which is 3.36% tax rate increase. So now, might be easier if anybody has any questions on any of these adjustments. I'm open for discussion.
Okay, I'm gonna, how we're gonna proceed, council, is I'm gonna open up the floor for council discussion. If you have any questions, then we'll take a 5 or a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back for public discussion. Any questions from council right now? No? Councilor Sheneman, do you have any questions?
No, all good. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Good.
Okay, great. Then what I'll do, we'll just take a 10-minute break and we'll resume at 8:33 or 7:33, an hour break, 10 minutes, at 7:33, and open up the floor for public discussion. So anyone that's on with us virtually in Hornepayne, you'll have opportunity to ask questions at that time. So get yourself prepared and we'll have a discussion. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, great. So we've had the presentation from the interim treasurer, and I open up the floor for public discussion. Those that are online, there should be a raise hand feature that you can use. If you're using your mobile phone, you might not have that feature, so you can unmute yourself and ask a question. And please state your name, and we can go from there. And anyone here in the audience, David, if you have a question, you can just raise your hand
Yeah,
as well.
I was thinking the mechanics of the online is a little more clunky, so if the online people want to go ahead, if any of that question.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you, David. Okay, so I'm opening up the floor for the public online for questions. Could you bring up the sheet so I can see? You know what I mean.
Would you like me to share, Jennifer, or are you going to bring it up?
Okay, thank goodness.
Sorry, it muted us.
Okay, Richard, I was chatting and I just want to make sure you could hear us. And
Okay, now I can. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just saying that you still have presenter, that you can still present, and if we need anything brought up, we'll bring it up, we'll request it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions currently from online. And we do have Mr. Jeremy in council chambers, and he has some questions, so we'll go to you, David.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'm just gonna ask Richard or asking, like, I know through you, but.
Yeah, through,
Okay.
yeah, and through
Okay.
me to Richard. Yeah, go
So,
ahead.
Richard, if I could ask for some clarification, on the movement of some cost into contract services, just to make sure I understand this correctly. So the total budget for this year will be 70,000 for contract services?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so that's still short services as well as municipal government wayfinders, correct?
Yes. What that covers is, excuse me, what's been happening over the last year. My billing when the treasurer was off, so I bill monthly, and they've been charging that into wages for admin to simply. That's where the treasurer's costs were budgeted for, so that's where my billing was charged. Council has suggested that we set up a separate line and we call it contract services. So what I have done, I have reduced, because at this point in time, I don't know when the treasurer may be back, but I wanted to put something in there equivalent to what costs have been over the last year for myself. So I've simply moved it from wages down to contract services. And then the other item was municipal government wayfinders. Michael Wildman, that's been consulting with the municipality for, I guess, 5 years or more. His charges in the past have been split. Sometimes it's charged into council. So that's why I reduced the council budget by 4,000. And some of it was most of his time was being charged to admin training, because that's what he's been doing over the last year, assisting Eileen when she was here, now Jennifer. So again, instead of charging that down to training, we're going to put it all up into contract services. So the net is no change to the overall bottom line. It's just moving things into that $70,000 new line called contract services. Is that clear?
So in the old, not the old, but the budget summary from the last meeting that you didn't reprint one, of course, it makes sense.
Yeah.
That was blank, so that's just a 70 in that number, then, correct?
Yeah.
In that.
That's correct. And what I will do before the next meeting, or before we bring the final budget to council, there will be updated sheets for each department with those new figures. I just thought it was easier for everybody, instead of getting a whole new set of sheets, if you want, by department, to sort of highlight the changes and then give the summary. And but there will be a detailed report, the same as 2 weeks ago, for each department before the budget is approved.
Right. The last meeting, there were discussions, people weren't certain whether that legal number from 2024 included any of the municipal government wayfinder bills. Has that been determined yet, or is that budget number still a true 112?
It has been determined, and that number is all legal.
All legal, okay.
Yeah.
So that leads me to my next question of just the maybe some thought around the budgeting number for legal. In 2023, the legal budget exceeded the actual budget by just under 50 grand, I guess, and then about a little over 80,000 in the following year. So it's been budgeted down to 50, which is still all two-thirds more of what it was a couple of years ago. Just wondering what the thought is on how that number is going to come down so much.
I guess it's a hope more than anything. And also, the hope is that we can get a CAO shortly with some experience that would be able to handle a lot of the issues, I think, that have gone to council to legal. And I have to say, I know some of the legal because it does involve finances, but I don't know all of the legal issues that are going on or have gone on. Of course, they're all discussed in closed session. I understand or believe that a couple of those things are coming to an end. So hopefully that bill will also then decrease in the future. That's, I guess, my best explanation as to why I've suggested a budget of 50,000.
Okay.
Just a follow up to that, Richard, too, we are still moving forward with a new RFP out for legal as well.
Yes, we are.
Go ahead, David.
I just wanted to ask a question about curling. I'm surprised. I understand curling is operating this year. Correct?
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
There's no revenue stated for curling club rental. So does that mean, like, not my mind? Do I understand this correctly? That the curling club will be operating at no cost to the curlers?
That is correct. We passed the resolution. I'm not sure exactly what it stated. That was at the end of December. Did we pass that? Yes. And we, because of the challenges that the curling club has faced, and we want to work with the curling club, we've said that many times here, and that we were giving the fees, waiving that to get it up and running for this entire year,
Was that
2020.
like an open?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was the last meeting, I believe, in December, our last regular meeting. Go ahead, Councillor Kistemaker.
And also, we had to have it operational this year, so we take the measurements for the
Feasibility study.
the
Yeah.
feasibility study to go forward. So we've been replaced the compressor, and that had to be done.
It's a good opportunity for the curlers to build their build their club without having the hammer of having to sell hot dogs every second weekend to.
Yes, and I think just a follow up to that, we did that into next year too, right? Following.
Also, it's
For the curling club,
Yes.
it is for the calendar year of 2025.
Calendar. Yes.
Calendar 2025. Yeah. So
your budget year, okay.
Yes.
On that note, can I just ask a question about how, like the budget for electricity for the curling club is at zero, but obviously it's going to burn. The plant burns electricity, so it must be some electricity as well as the lights, etc. Is that just swallowed up in the fitness facility, or is there some reason why the electrical costs are not there?
yeah, we had quite a discussion on that last. Was that at the first budget meeting? And I can't going by memory here. about how they're divided up. So they're divided up between I believe it's the canteen hydro and I don't have the budget line items in front of me, but Richard, if you want to speak to that, they were divided up between the two, like the fitness facility area and the canteen area, I believe was the other one.
Yes, I believe so. And I've got to find that out for sure. But I believe there's 1 meter, and so the fitness center, the curling, and the canteen are all under 1 hydrometer. And so I think the suggestion was to try and come up with, we can't actually break that cost down monthly, but what we should be able to do is come up with a reasonable explanation or estimate, of what it should be for each. And then we could, like, if it's, I'm going to say 40, 50, and 10, we can at least allocate those costs to those departments on that basis. So that's something that I still need to follow up on and do an allocation based on our best estimate of the split of that cost.
So just a follow up to ensure that we answer David's question. Those hydro costs then, are they captured under which line item? Is it the fitness facility line item then? Because we do have it captured in there.
Yeah, let me just have a quick look here.
Thank you, Richard. Councillor, it is okay.
It is, yeah, it's fitness.
Okay. So theoretically, if the fitness room were to move, then that $28,000 would then be borne only by the curling club.
Yes, it would be split between the curling, canteen, and fitness. Yep.
Yeah, and then the canteen is going to be pretty small.
Yes.
Yeah. So if going forward in the future, if the curling club is back on their feet, that's a $30,000 bill they're going to have to contend with at some point while the arena is still in its current configuration, if the weight room was to go somewhere else.
Well, I think to have that discussion after we see what that is, because they would have their curling club room back, and then there are some modifications in the plan to the canteen area. So I'm not sure what that'll look like. So I wouldn't want to just say yes, it'll all go to the curling club, because that's why we asked to have some estimates so we could figure out what those costs are.
I think that's all I have.
Councillor Belinda Kismay.
I'd just like to add is something that we have to look at to make better.
Mm-hmm. And we're hoping that if we need a new plant.
Yeah.
And in the course of getting a new plant, hopefully that brings down some cost measures too, because we're looking at a recapture plant. So yes. Yes. Councillor
And
Kismay.
what was the payback on that with the efficiency increase? 5 years? So 5 years, then you apply that extra that you're making towards the hydro bill literally should be down considerably.
But the arena project still could be 2-3 years away from completion. Yeah, that's.
Well, the arena project really, if it's going to move forward completely, it has to be done by 2026. We don't have that grant beyond March of 2027. Yeah, it needs to be done. Yeah.
And this plant we're talking about getting there, like with the measurements, that's separate from the other one.
Yes,
So that's
that's
basically a standalone project that will pay for itself.
So potentially the arena project could be done with the weight room moved somewhere else,
Yes.
and that curling club having to operate for a year or two under with the current plant, meaning
Yes.
there'd be roughly maybe whatever $20,000-$25,000 charge minimum for that property. If at some point in time you're looking at for them, that would be something that have to do.
Yeah, it's not
If-
just thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of ifs there. If we were able to continue use of that plant, I think we have to move to get it replaced and do
Absolutely, yeah.
do
But
the new
you
plant,
just might
so.
not have the money to do that by the end of 2026 or the end of 2026.
So
Excellent, thank you so much.
thank you, David. I'm going to open up the floor again to questions from the public that are online. Okay, well, we're waiting to see if there's any questions. I open up the floor for any further comments from council at this time. Councillor Dragospanic, go ahead.
On the theme of the curling plant refrigeration system. What stage are we at? Just a comment that we are going to have a total report from the consultants to see what the actual cost is. I thought that we discussed it for the last couple of years. There would be company coming in and
It's gotta
energy
be up and running
save
before they
and
measure it, though, right?
Yeah, and we have to do the application. The application was not followed through
It
when,
was
before the
not.
CAO left. So we have to follow up and get
Like all
that
of you, yeah.
process going.
because that's what we're
Yes.
going to have before we move.
Yeah.
To have a full report. I mean, we could assume it payback in 5 years if I want to see in documentation saying that.
Mhm.
I don't assume anything.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Sheneman, did you have any further questions for tonight?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. All's well, thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna put a final call out. The floor has been open for over 15 minutes now, I believe, if I've done my math right.
Yes.
Okay. So I do want to put a final call out for questions.
Excuse me.
Okay, I'm not seeing any. And I'm gonna ask Richard. Richard, can you just let the public know the next steps of how we finalize our budget? What's coming next, please?
So the next steps would be, there's a couple of things that we need to finalize as far as the capital. We need to get an idea whether we can proceed with one joint project for the arena or two separate ones. But I'm hearing council's desire to proceed with getting the current repairs done and the expansion going this year. So that's good. We'll forward, or we'll work ahead with that RFP and try and get it out as soon as possible. Very minor changes from tonight. I think the only thing was the suggestion on the THM HAA reduction to put back into the budget there, but it's also a transfer reserve from reserve, so it doesn't have any bottom line effect. I'm still waiting on costs for the landfill expansion, the good news item, but again, there is money in reserve to cover that expense for this year. I guess my bottom line question to council tonight would be, I am suggesting that we end with a 3.36% tax rate adjustment and no capital items funded from current budget this year, which I think we should try and do each year. The other thing that we did not talk about, but I may mention, I think at the last meeting I had suggested that we look at a 3% increase in both water and wastewater. Since that, and I should have mentioned this earlier, I apologize, there's been some discussion about the rates being charged to the township by Aqua. And I think as a result of that, I believe we may be able to recommend holding the water and wastewater rates at zero. Maybe I should open that up for discussion with council. To me, it's not always wise to say zero when you know that the cost of living has gone up. But I also know that your water and wastewater rates are significant in the municipality. So if we can hold the cost with Aqua, would council want to hold the water and wastewater rates at zero or somewhere between 0 and 3%? Can I just get a general feeling for that before that would, by the way, that would be dealt with as a separate budget item when we set the water and wastewater rates by separate bylaw. So we can still proceed and do the operating budget and the capital budget and get it approved by council. So we're ready to set tax rates. And if you want, just simply leave the water and wastewater until we finalize with Aqua. What's council's feeling on that topic?
Council, my first question on that is if we do, end up being successful in not having to continue with the rates as is,
Mhm.
does that in the current budget give us a bit of a surplus, or does it just balance out? That's what I'm like. If we're paying those current rates, what does that do to our budget, as it's set right now? Because my concern is we do have other projects that we have to do in the future. So
Yes,
I don't want to have a 0%. I wouldn't be
that's
looking at a 3% then, but something so that we can move all of that into,
into a reserve. Yeah.
because like we have First Avenue, Front Street, like there's other roads that need to be done. Like Third Avenue is just the beginning of
Hmm.
what we have to go after for the community. So, but I do open the floor to council of, or do you have those numbers now, Richard, or of my first question? Sorry, I went up
Yeah.
all of that for a bit, but.
I can say if we're successful at holding the rates from Aqua, then it would result in a surplus for this year, a small surplus in the water, and probably very small surplus in wastewater. And so, yeah, I'm wondering whether we should, whether I believe I should be recommending, let's split the difference and do a 1.5% increase in both. I would hope that would be acceptable to taxpayers, knowing the cost of living is going up by almost 3% year over year. And then we do have some money to keep improving the water and the wastewater systems within the township.
Okay, I open up for council for comment on that. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I was waiting for that actually. I played with some numbers last couple weeks. I went to 2.116 each, then went down to 2, and I finalized at 1.5% each. Total 3% increase.
Okay,
That
so you're in favor of that
was 1.5,
recommendation?
1.5, yeah.
Okay,
I calculated that in my own, and I like that.
okay, Councillor Shannon, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm in agreement with that also, that we need to have something in the budget to be able to know, because we do realize that things are going to go up, so I wouldn't want to be caught flat-footed. Thank you.
Councillor Kistenmaker?
I agree.
Agree, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, you're getting complete consensus around the table, and
That's-
I'm in agreement too. I would rather do a small incremental.
Yes.
So people
I
can
agree.
adjust than,
Yeah.
you know, going 0 for 2 years and then now you gotta do 5% in 1 year. Like that's a huge bite
Yes.
in 1 year. So,
Okay. So I think my plans would be, I'm hoping that I can, I'm going to be away all next week, by the way, Council. Leaving tomorrow morning, be back for February 3rd. So the next council meeting is the 12th. I would like to finalize the draft budget and put it on the agenda for the council meeting of the 12th. If there are any further questions, I'm not going to say it has to be passed on the 12th, but I think if we're ready to, the sooner we can, then the sooner we can get on with doing some of these other projects. This, you know, the renovations to the airport and to the fire department and whatever. So that would be my goal, is to make these final adjustments, and I will explain anything that comes up from the landfill expansion and whatever, any final adjustments at the night of that council meeting. And but at this point in time, the budget would be based on a 3.36 operating rate, tax rate adjustment, and a 1.5 on water and wastewater. Okay.
okay, so the 1.5 is 1.5 each to each one, right?
Each.
So it's a total of
Yes.
3. Okay.
Not a
Okay,
total of 3. Well, yeah.
1.5.
And 1.5. Yes.
Right. Thank you for that. Okay, and will there be opportunity, because this was open discussion for budget, operating budget, are we providing open discussion for water and sewer rates?
Absolutely. We can do that right now if you want.
Well, I would prefer to do it after we have a bit of a presentation. Maybe we can include
Okay.
that in our February 12th meeting, or if you're prepared at that
Yep.
time, or when we do that, so the
Yeah, we can.
community knows that. The other thing is, did we receive any emailed questions in the allotted time from the public for the budget?
I did not receive any, and I know that there were no questions come into the treasurer@hornepayne.ca email address. I check that each day as well. So
Okay.
I have not received any. I don't know whether Jennifer would have received anything herself.
Yeah, Jen's indicating she didn't receive anything either. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure and just ask that on behalf of if anyone had to have those
And
answered. So,
if anybody has any questions, council or public, after the fact, just send me an email or send it to treasurer@hornepayne.ca, and I will try and respond before the budget is passed. I guess I could respond after as well, but it would be more important if they have questions, then I would mention them to council as well at the budget at the regular meeting.
okay, so do we want to just set a timeline then for people, if our meeting's on the 12th, that the Friday or the Friday previous to that, they can get questions in if they have
I
further
would
questions?
say, I would recommend the Wednesday
The
previous,
Wednesday?
because that's when our deadline is for agenda
Okay.
submissions.
So what day is that, Jen? Do you have it up there? Sorry.
That would be Wednesday, February 5th.
Okay, so for the public, just in preparations of our meetings, if you have any further questions on the budget, you're welcome to email them in at treasurer@hornepayne.ca before, that's noon on the
On Wednesday, February 5th.
Wednesday, February the 5th. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, I leave it up. Is there any further comments, Richard, from yourself before I close up the meeting tonight?
No, nothing else I can think of. I think I've done lots of talking.
Okay, well, we here in Hornepayne wish you safe travels, and I hope you enjoy your time away, and we'll see you back after February the 3rd, and of course on the 12th virtually. So
For sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay, council, we have the adjournment bylaw confirmatory. If I can get a mover and a second, moved by Councillor Peter Kistemaker, second by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2108, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at their special meeting held on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025, be hereby read a first and second time and be considered read a third time and finally passed. Those in favor? Thank you, Ted. I can see it clearly now. And that is carried. And the adjournment, please, moved by Councillor Drago-Stefanik, second by Councillor Peter Kistemaker. Be it resolved that council does hereby adjourn the special meeting of council held on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025 at 8:02 p.m. Those in favor? And that is carried.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, council.
Thank
Stay
you.
warm out there.